Right now, lawmakers on Long Island are unveiling legislation to help reduce hate crime, graffiti, and other acts of intolerance. They're holding a press conference in Rockville Center to discuss the bill. Let's listen in.
Our own Assemblywoman Judy Griffin. We're here with Karandeep Lally, a student in Valley Stream Central High School. Our district attorney has had to confront many acts of racism, anti-Semitism, and intolerance, and it was her idea that we come together today and talk about how education may be a path forward. I now introduce our district attorney, Madeline Singas.
All right. Thank you, Senator Kaminsky. What a great day it is, and really what a great showing of elected officials and community leaders who are here to stand together and say no to hate in Long Island, in our communities in Nassau, and in our state of New York. The Swastika and the Noose serve as some of the most significant and notorious of hate symbols, anti-Semitism and white supremacy for most of the world. They're shorthand for racism and bigotry. They're pernicious and insidious, and yet most students don't even know what they mean. While no one may get physically hurt by the drawing of a swastika or a noose, the symbols are dehumanizing and take away one's sense of security and freedom. With a few strokes of a brush, of a paintbrush or a pen, those symbols strike at the heart of communities, unnerve those communities, and strike fear into so many people. Hate and hate-related crimes are learned behavior and a systemic and societal issue. We see a lot of young adults and teenagers committing criminal acts like spray painting swastikas. So we have tried to come up with alternative dispositions in the district attorney's office. My hate crimes unit frequently teams up with organizations like the Holocaust Memorial Intolerance Center. They, along with Holocaust survivors, help counsel young defendants by explaining not only what the swastika means, but what a society of hate and racism can lead to. The experience at the Tolerance Center gives them a deeper understanding of what they did. And at the end of the program, we often dismiss their cases, but more importantly, they walk away with a deep understanding of what they did, what those symbols mean, and they're committed to not doing that again. But it's not enough to solely react to this problem. By introducing this legislation, we will proactively teach middle and high school students about the meaning of the swastika and the noose, so incidents like last week in Oyster Bay don't continue to happen. And by relying on our community groups, our houses of worship, and our schools, we will erase hate and get it out of our communities. The diversity of Nassau's communities is one of our greatest assets, and nobody should be a victim because of the color of the skin, their gender, the God they believe in, or the person that they love. I want to thank Senator Kaminsky and Assemblyman Levine for being proactive leaders and introducing this bill. Thank you.
What this legislation that is being introduced will do is the following. It's a few lines, but there are a few important lines. I think it's incredibly important that we have a district attorney who, with one hand, will prosecute those who perpetrate acts of intolerance to the greatest extent of the law, and with the other hand also realize that education can be a path forward to prevent these acts from happening. This is what this new bill says. It says the regents shall ensure that the course of instruction for grades 6 through 12 includes a component on the meaning of the swastika as the emblem of Nazi Germany, as well as the noose as a symbol of racism and intimidation. The regents shall determine how to incorporate such components into existing curricula, and the commissioners shall promulgate any regulations needed to carry out such determinations of the regents. It's incredibly important that when our young people go to school, they understand what these symbols mean, how they were used, and what pain they can inflict within our communities. I would now like to call on the other sponsor of this legislation in the State Assembly, our Assemblyman Chuck Levine.
Thank you, Senator. we don't like snakes. It took thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands of years for human beings to develop a gut sense of the lethal danger of snakes. And in a way, it's our obligation to teach our children to be safe and to teach them of the danger of snakes, and not just the snakes that slither in the grass. Snakes every bit as lethal. Snakes who delight in hanging the hangman's noose. Snakes who delight in painting swastikas. Everyone here has had someone in their family who has been victimized by hatred. It is what makes a very common theme for those of us who are Americans. But because we are Americans, we know that we have to watch out for everyone. Every single one. And we also know that we must not only be tolerant, but we must be accepting and loving of our fellow citizens who may be considered by some different from the rest of us. So this wonderful bill will help to educate our children to make sure that they know how to protect themselves from the symbols of hatred, the symbols of intolerance, and, my friends, the symbols of death. Thank you.
We are very fortunate to have as our county executive someone at the helm of this county who gives no quarter to any intolerance, who stands up for inclusivity, and whose police department has been on the front lines battling these crimes. I'd like to introduce our great county executive, Laura Curran.
Thank you very much, Senator. And I want to thank you, Assemblyman Levine, and District Attorney Singas for jumping into action so quickly. And I just want to give you a little bit of context as to why this is so important for our county right here in Nassau. So hate crimes have been going down. I should say had been going down. In 2016, there were 59 reported hate crimes in the county. 2017 went down a little bit to 56. The next year, 18 went down quite a bit to 34. So far, in 2019, we are up 40. We have 44 hate crimes already on the books. This time last year, that number was 20. Clearly, we are not giving our young people the knowledge that they need to not perpetrate these kinds of crimes and spread the fear that they are spreading. So getting into the schools, working with our high school teachers. I know Steve Markowitz does a fantastic job at the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center teaching kids, and he's going to speak about this later, about what these hate symbols mean, what they symbolize. So the more that we can do to get into these kids' brains to teach them in our very fractured social media world with crazy information coming at them from all places, to teach them the real history and what these symbols mean and what has happened in real history, I think will make a difference. So I thank you and you and you very much for pushing this forward, and let's get it done up in Albany. Thank you.
When our county executive just mentioned, let's get it done in Albany, that's only going to happen if we have the chairs of the education committees interested and involved. And we're so lucky in the state Senate to have Shelley Mayer as our chair of education, who firmly believes in this bill and what it stands for. She came down from Yonkers. I'd like to introduce Shelley Mayer.
Thank you very much, Senator Kaminsky and Assemblyman Levine, and my colleagues in government and in the community here in Nassau who have stepped up. This is not a moment for silence. This is a moment when hate crimes show their face, as the county executive just mentioned, and the number of them increases, or we see signs that we have to take every step possible. And from an education standpoint, as chair of the Senate Education Committee, we need to push and make sure that our regions incorporate these issues into the curriculum in an affirmative way. We can't stand back and wait for someone to think it's a good idea or to be blessed with a great teacher. We need to actually say the noose and the swastika have to be part of the conversation so that young people know what these symbols mean. These are powerful symbols. They change the lives of people when they see them, and we must affirm affirmatively take the step to educate. So I'm so pleased that this bill puts these front and center. Now is the time to ensure that every child in New York State knows what these symbols mean and is fully educated on the dangers of even talking or showing them in public, because we have a crisis on our hands. You've stepped up to address it. I look forward to moving this bill next year in the Senate and getting it done so that we actually change lives. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you.
Senator Mayer said you don't have to have a fantastic teacher in order to learn about this. That's what this bill will do. But we do have a fantastic teacher here with us today, John Buglione, a social studies teacher from Baldwin High School, who's going to discuss the need for this legislation. Oh, excuse me, and who postponed his summer vacation to be here.
Okay, yeah. But my son is here to make sure I'm brief. So he said. On Friday, I've known Senator Kaminsky for a few years. We take students from Baldwin High School up to Albany. The senator buys them pizza, which is very good for the teenage vote. So he texted me and he asked, after these incidents had happened, was there anything specific in the curriculum that mandates that teachers allot time to teaching the history of the symbols, such as the swastika, the noose, maybe other symbols. And I conferred with colleagues, and we said, there isn't. There are mandates for other, like there's a mandate to teach about the Constitution. There's a mandate to teach about 9/11. But as far as we knew, there's no specific mandate to teach students about the history of these symbols and the way that these symbols have embodied this meaning that we've designated as hate speech. So I'm super proud. I'm astounded at how energetic everyone was, because this conversation happened on Friday and it's Tuesday. But I'm super proud to be a part of this, and I think it'll go a long way in teaching students the meanings and why we as a society have designated things as these symbols as hate speech. So I'd like to thank everybody, and especially the senator and the co-sponsors. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
We're lucky to be in the town of Hempstead, where Laura Gillen has also led a strong fight against acts of intolerance, and we're lucky to have her here today.
Good morning, everyone. I have prepared remarks, but really a lot of what I was going to say has already been said. I applaud our District Attorney Madeline Singis, for her leadership in spearheading this issue. I thank Senator Kaminsky and Assemblyman Levine for taking up the charge in Albany. This is such an important issue. We've seen an uptick, as the county executive said, in hate crimes, not just here within the county of Nassau, but across our country. And it's incredibly important that young people understand the deep-seated hatred and fear that these symbols inspire in other people, and they understand the gravity of putting forward these kinds of symbols. So I think that this is incredibly important. When you change young minds, you can change the world. So thank you. I look forward to seeing this legislation pass in Albany.
Thank you. A partner of mine at Albany, Senator Anna Kaplan, who is a staunch fighter on behalf of her community, but also more importantly for a tolerant New York, and she's going to work hard to get this bill passed as well. Senator Anna Kaplan.
Thank you. Last week, a sick person with a hate-filled heart went to our park and tried to intimidate us using these disgusting symbols of anti-Semitism and white supremacy. Today, we all gather here united to say that we reject hatred and also anti-Semitism, that our community has no room for these hates, and that we're not just going to sit back and allow hatred to take root. When I heard what happened last week, I immediately reached out to Governor Cuomo to ask for the state police assistance in investigating these disgusting crimes and lending a support to our local law enforcement. Our governor has always stood up against acts of hatred like this, and I'm grateful for his ongoing effort to keep hate out of our state. And now, Senator Kaminsky and Assemblyman Chuck Levine have introduced a great bill that I'm proud to be a co-sponsor, that's going to ensure that the next generation understands the meaning of these symbols of hatred, that they understand the devastation of Holocaust and the role of anti-Semitism in provoking violence against Jewish people around the world. These actions are important to fight the disease of racism in our society. But the most important thing is that we all stand together and proclaim loudly with one voice that every opportunity we have to send a message that we will never give hatred home in state of New York. Thank you.
If we all said nothing today but stood here as an act of defiance against hatred, it would be meaningful enough. And I can't tell you how honored I am to have Tracy Edwards here, the regional director of the NAACP, to stand with us in support of this legislation. Tracy?
Thank you very much, and we want to thank Senator Kaminsky, Assemblyman Levine, and District Attorney Singis for their leadership. I will tell you that the county executive is absolutely correct. Hate crimes have gone up, and that is only the category of hate crimes. And what I mean by that is there are many other incidents that happen across our state that may not be designated as a hate crime, but is still hateful language, it's hateful speech, it's hateful symbols, it's hateful actions. So what this bill is a wonderful thing, because I am proud to stand here with our NAACP New York State Education Chair. I'm also grateful to be here with our NAACP Civic Engagement Chair, and also the presidents of both Lakeview and Westbury. So that's Christine Waters, H. Scotty Codes, Doris Hicks, and Leslie Davis, on behalf of our New York State President, Hazel Dukes. We happen to have 3 teachers amongst us. So like the teacher said, they are wonderful assets that can help combat what's going on today. And it's a lot. Every grade level should have the opportunity to learn about different cultures, tolerance, language, symbols of hate. Our teachers have the best opportunity to partner with parents to teach awareness and diversity. New York State has zero tolerance for this type of action. This bill will go a long way, because today we are teaching our children after the fact, after the infraction. They are going to centers, they are going to teachers, they are talking to their parents about the actions that they have already taken. What this does, it puts it in the forefront, it is proactive, it is inclusive, and I want to end by again thanking Senator Todd Kaminsky, Assemblyman Chuck Levine, and our DA Singis, and all of you for being here to champion this very important and critical time in our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. We're happy to be joined by the Jewish Community Relations Council, which has really spearheaded efforts for unity across Nassau County. So I'd like to ask Adam Novak, who is their chair, and also the star of the 1994 Long Beach High School tennis team, to please come over.
I'm glad you put that in there, because I got something about you in here, too. Good morning, everyone. My name is Adam Novak. I am the chairman of the Jewish Community Relations Council of Long Island, and along with our executive director, Mindy Perlmutter, I'd like to thank the New York State Senator Todd Kaminsky, Nassau County District Attorney Madeline Singis, and New York Assemblyman Chuck Levine for arranging this morning's press conference, and to all our government officials for the work that they do to fight hate and bigotry throughout the county. 2 of JCRC's primary goals are building relationships and connecting communities. Thus, when we see any form of hate symbols, it goes against all of which we work for. I am proud to say I knew Senator Kaminsky when, And I'm even prouder to say that Senator Kaminsky listens and acts to protect his constituents. I've long been a proponent of education as a way of combating the rise of anti-Semitic and hate-filled incidents. We, as a community, must work together to stop the hate. And we must start by teaching why the use of certain symbols are so dangerous. The JCRC of Long Island believes that schools must be a part of this education. It is imperative to teach our students about the meaning of these horrible symbols and the message that they communicate. Additionally, school leaders must take vigorous, proactive measures to counter prejudice and to promote equality and inclusiveness. They must act swiftly and decisively to address all incidents of hate and bias when they happen. The JCRC calls upon all Long Islanders, including our community leaders, public officials, and school personnel, to work with us and to speak out forcefully and denounce hate in all of its manifestations. Thank you.
We're lucky to be joined by our own Assemblywoman from this district, Judy Griffin, who's going to fight hard for this bill's passage in Albany this year.
Thank you, everyone. Good morning, and thank you all for being here. Recently, as we have all been discussing, there's been an uptick in hate in our communities. Swastikas are a symbol of intolerance and will not have a place in our society, while nooses are a symbol of racism and have a history of intimidation. It is so important that the meaning of these hateful symbols be taught to our children in schools. I am proud to stand together with my fellow elected officials to say that bigotry and hatred will not be tolerated. I am proud to be a co-sponsor of this bill to fight against hate symbols in our schools, to foster a more tolerant society in the years to come. Thank you, Senator Kaminsky and Assemblyman Levine, for sponsoring this bill. Thank you very much, everyone.
From Long Island's Holocaust Museum and Tolerance Center, Steve Markowitz. Thank you.
I have with me Helen Turner, who is our Director of Education. These incidents of swastikas and nooses is not something new. It's something we've been dealing with for many years here on Long Island, and our center has been at the forefront of trying to deal with that. We developed a program several years ago called Deconstructing the Symbols of Hate, which have several components. The first is to teach the history and the meaning of these symbols. Where do they come from? The second is to try to impart to young people the impact that these symbols have on people who happen to see them. Imagine the impact of a swastika on a survivor of the Holocaust or of a young African-American kid who's been subject to some kind of racism. These symbols are very hurtful, and we try to teach that how powerful and impactful they truly are. And the third thing we teach is how to stand up to them. That's the most important thing. How do you deal with it? And you're a young person. When you see a swastika or a noose or other symbol, how do you deal with it? How do you respond to it? And how do you become an upstander to show that you're a leader against hate? We have been very fortunate in this program. About 4,000 students across Long Island have already been exposed to it. We have a very developed curriculum, and we are now being asked by tolerance institutions all across the country have come to us to ask us for our curriculum. And we are looking forward to working with Senator Kaminsky, Senator Kaplan, Assemblyman Levine, and others to work with the Department of Education that we can be part of the solution to this terrible problem. Thank you very much.
And now a student from Valley Stream, Karandeep Lally.
K-I-R-A-N-D-E-E-P. Good morning. My name is Karandeep Lally, and I'm a student at Valley Stream Central High School. I would first like to thank everybody for the opportunity to have a voice in this significant topic due to a recent event that occurred in my community several months ago. As a part of this senior tradition at Central High School, cups are posted on the fence with words commemorating our final year in high school. But in the previous school year, someone had rearranged these cups into a racial slur, which had a shocking impact within our community. Although Central High School responded in a dignified manner, this event cannot pass without being unaddressed. This personal example is quite serious in the topic of how hate speech and symbols negatively impacts a group of individuals because of ignorance. These scenarios could be avoided if cohesive discussions in the classroom occurred more frequently and more in depth. Educating the youth on the importance of what these hate symbols mean to certain groups could prevent such ignorant acts to occur in our neighborhoods, prompting my support on early and comprehensive discussion on hate symbols in the curriculum. Raising self-awareness at a young age would be beneficial in teaching the significance of these symbols from history, as well as prepare us on how to adequately and effectively approach these situations in the future. Thank you.
I would also like to recognize the chair of the Martin Luther King Center in Long Beach, James Hodge, who's always been a big proponent in doing the right thing and having unity in the community. So I want to thank James for being here today. Thanks for coming, James. So as we stand here in 2019 having to discuss nooses and swastikas, we have to wonder how we got to this place, but we know that we need to do a lot more. Maybe there's something to the fact that there's not just some inertia that will make us a more tolerant and humane society just on its own. We got to work for it. We certainly have to work for it in our schools, and that's what this is about. Thank you, Madam District Attorney, for your idea behind doing this. We're all going to work together to get this done. Thank you to Laura Kerr and the first responders that keep us safe and that respond to these acts. And let's all work together to have a better Nassau County going forward. Thank you. Oh, yes, thank you. And we're also very lucky to have the Anti-Defamation League here, who have been doing work on this for a long time, and that's Richard Preem. Thanks, Richard. Thank you for being here. Would you like to say something? Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. I think this bill could not be advanced at a more timely moment. ADL reported last year 1,879 anti-Semitic incidents, 340 of which took place in New York, 43 on Long Island. It's the third highest level of anti-Semitic incidents since we started tracking 40 years ago. White supremacist activity is also increasing, not only as we've seen with the attacks in El Paso, at the synagogue in Pittsburgh or in Poway, but also on college campuses and universities. ADL recorded 313 white supremacist propaganda incidents on college campuses and universities across the country. So this bill to teach young people about hate symbols couldn't be at a more timely moment, than ADL welcomes the initiative.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Any questions?
So what is the so given that the spike came in just so far in this part of 2019, what is the expected reason? Why do we think there is this uptick? Is it rhetoric at home? Is it online speech? What is the attribution variable?
I mean, that's a good question, and if we knew the answer to that, we could more systemically go after the root cause. Whatever it is, people have found each other in internet group chats. They've gotten support from other elected officials. They've found that their voice can be magnified, and that's what's dangerous. And that's why this bill is so important, because, a lot of the young offenders that we deal with in the DA's office, when we ask them why it is they painted that or drew that and what it means to them, they often can't even tell us what it means. They don't know. And that's what really prompted this, because if we can educate our youngsters about the pernicious nature of these symbols, then I'm confident that those hate symbols and those acts will decrease. Because at the end of our programs, after we've educated children, they're embarrassed. They can't believe they painted something like that. They're pretty humbled by the entire thing. And for us in the DA's office, it's always about crime prevention. If we can prevent crime, that's great. So this bill, I especially like because it is proactive and gets us into young people's minds early on so that they can reject this hate language and these feelings which, for whatever reason, have a voice now.
Sure. So my conversations with Mr. Buglione and
we have been watching as lawmakers on Long Island unveiled legislation to help reduce hate crimes. That bill mandates all middle and high school students across New York State be educated about the meaning of the swastika and noose as symbols of hate. This comes almost a week after multiple swastikas were found drawn into a park in Oyster Bay. Lawmakers say education is a way that they can take proactive action to ease and erase hate from their communities. Right now, we're taking a quick break, but we'll be right back here on CBSN New York. See you then.